I can get the email chain. Oh, Daniel, can you mute the call?
Sure.
Okay. I can get the email chain going if everyone wants to put their emails in the chat.
Is it okay if we do a doc instead? I mean, an email chain is, if you prefer an email chain, that's fine. But
No, a doc is fine.
Okay.
Do you want to make a link or do you want me to?
I've already made the doc, so I'll just send it in the
Oh,
chat.
awesome. Thanks. I think Daniel and I are all good to go, and it looks like all judges and opponents are here. So whenever y'all want to start.
Real quick, what's the flip?
So
Flintridge.
Fairmont is speaking first on the AF.
Okay.
And I'm the first speaker, and I'm Rohan. Oh wait, you can see that. Okay. All right, is everyone good to go? Okay. In that case, time can start. We affirm, and our first contention is incarceration. Prohibition of drug possession fuels mass incarceration. Sawyer writes, in the year 2020, 21,000 people were serving sentences in local jails for drug possessions, and 45,000 people were serving sentences in state prisons for drug possessions nationwide. This incarceration has not deterred drug use. In 2018, the Pew found across all US states, higher rates of drug imprisonment did not translate into lower rates of drug use, arrests, or overdose deaths. Affirming would alleviate this detention crisis in two ways. First is preventing new incarcerations. As the ADF 21 explains, drug legalization removes all penalties for possession and personal use of a drug. Second is expungement. Proposed legislation includes expungement clauses. Hutzler 21 confirms the recently unveiled the Drug Policy Reform Act would decriminalize personal use, possession of all scheduled drugs, and automatically expunge records and provide for resentencing for those serving time. The impact is life, as Krieger 19 quantifies mortality rates in detention have shown to be 50% higher than for prisoners than for people in the wider community. Contention 2 is public health. Man 21 finds the United States is facing an unprecedented crisis of overdose deaths fueled by illegally manufactured fentanyl and methamphetamine. Affirming solves in three ways. First is quality control. Coin 17 finds under prohibition, poor information quality and flow combined with potency effects on both sides of the market increase drug-related deaths. For example, Brown 19 finds more than 90% of descendants with opioid-related overdose deaths in Florida in 2017 also had other non-opioid toxic components in their systems. Affirming solves, as Doyle 20 finds, the quality control measures that typically come with the scale of a legal product serve to reduce risk and increase safety. Thus, Shenwar 21 concludes, to work toward ending the overdose crisis, full drug legalization will be necessary so people who use drugs can have access to safe supply with accurate information about the dosages, composition, and effects of drugs. Second is treatment. Shenwar 21 finds heightened criminalization discourages people from seeking emergency medical help in the event of overdoses because of fear of arrest threatening lives. Treatment exists, as Corkin 18 finds the most effective treatments for chronic opiate abuse disorder can lower mortality rates by 80%, making these medications central in the response to the crisis. Destigmatization has been successful elsewhere. Newport 21 finds in Portugal, the number of people in drug treatment increased by 20% in the first 7 years after legalization. Third is psychedelics. Barker 16 finds psychedelics are a powerful psychoactive substance that alters perception and mood and are generally considered physiologically safe and do not lead to dependence. They are not currently accessible. As Morsky 21 finds, at present, only one state and a handful of cities have decriminalized psilocybin, and or any other psychedelics, and the drugs are still illegal federally. Legalization increases interest, as Jaeger 21 finds Denver decriminalizing psilocybin mushrooms set off a wave of reform movements in cities across the US. There's a newfound awareness within the general public that psychedelics are safe and therapeutic. This decreases opioid use, as in a longitudinal study, Argento 21 explains recent psychedelic use was associated with a 55% reduced odds of daily opioid use. The first impact is mortality, as DPA finds in Portugal, overdose deaths decreased by over 80% after decriminalization of all illicit substances. This is critical, as Man 21 finds more than 93,000 Americans died from drug overdoses last year, and fentanyl is the primary driver for this alarming increase in overdose deaths. The second impact is health. Psychedelics help mental illnesses. Oaklander 18 analyzes recent research suggests that certain psychedelic substances can help relieve anxiety, depression, PTSD, addiction, and fear. Nielsen 21 concludes there are 2 billion treatable but untreated mental health disorders, 8 million preventable deaths per year. For these reasons, we affirm.
I'm gonna take prep with Sienna for a few seconds and I'll send a case doc.
That was 9 seconds.
Okay, I'm sending a case doc. Okay, I'm gonna put in the chat if that's fine with everyone. Yeah, let me know if anyone can't access the doc, or yeah. Everyone good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. The case will be pretty fast, so just clear me or say slow if it's ever ununderstandable. Time will start now. Flintridge negates. Contention 1 is staying blue. Pengelly 21 writes that Donald Trump will run for president again in 2024. Luckily, Sullivan 21 confirms that President Biden has reassured allies he will too, despite past failures. Hill 21 finds that infra bill is the big win Biden needs, guarding 68% support. Unfortunately, forcing legalization passed under Biden is the nail in the coffin. As Lopez 16 writes that poll results overwhelmingly suggest that cannabis is a big outlier, and most U.S. voters do not support legalization. Indeed, Ezra 21 writes that Democrats are the precipice of errors without a majority. If they fail, they would not get another chance. Swing voters are not woke. Democrats must avoid passing insane policies. Unfortunately, McKinsey 20 writes that Trump is reelected. Concerns among allies will be exacerbated because Trump would reduce America's fund with Brewer 25 will be allies to proliferate. Proliferation will be devastating as ungoverned to explains the success in outracing opponent will preemptively start nuclear war before others capable of retaliation. Independently, Clanner 16 writes that U.S. useful for decreases independent proliferation. Adversaries of North Korea doubt our ability to protect our allies, striking respective enemy nations. And Star 15 finds that nuclear creates uninhabitable conditions and family causing extinction. Legalizing would also kill the Dems in the midterm, as Walling 21 finds that Democrats are on a strong position to expand the majority based on recent midterm trends. Unfortunately, Pierce 21 finds that every time they get painted as soft on crime, they lose elections. Because Republicans historically vote down climate policies to cause multiple degrees of warming, and Silver 21 confirms because this will cause permanent devastation. Watts 18 quantifies even half a degree of warming will worsen drastic heat and poverty for hundreds of millions. Moreover, climate change causes lethal heat waves threatening extinction. Contention 2 is drug use. Drug use is declining as 918 finds except for cannabis, teen use of legal drugs is now the lowest in history. Unfortunately, legalization increases use in 4 ways. The first is marketing. Calkins 21 writes that once a product is legalized, the companies that will produce it will enjoy First Amendment freedom protections that allow marketing. Americans are highly susceptible. Yama 16 writes that 2/3 of adults take action for seeing a drug ad, and thus for every dollar spent on advertising sales and drugs was $4. Opioids proves that Lopez 17 writes the crisis began in big pharma. Companies push for misleading marketing for Oxycontin. Marketing is hard to regulate. It's done without ads. The New York Times writes that they can create edibles, colorful cookies, and sodas full of potent drugs, just as vapor tobacco did, which killed millions. Second is lowering costs. Humphrey 17 indicates that prohibition raises prices by imposing huge costs of production, transport, and sale. Heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine after legalization would become dramatically cheaper and yield little evidence to make price off to 98%. Devastatingly, all demand applies to drugs, and medicine quantifies a 10% drop in price yields and an 8% increase in demand. The third is perception. McCaffrey writes that legalization will send a strong message that taking drugs is safe and socially acceptable, especially for kids. Empirically, Berkeley confirms that teens cannabis use was 25% higher in legal states. The fourth is competition. Dangerously, IBA 21 writes that competition with drugs creates remarkable innovations, including making drugs into edibles for kid filliness or increasing potency of the products to add to its risks. This is conservative 16 writes that users rate prefer higher potencies. Empirics prove DuPont 21 writes that Colorado and Washington sell marijuana on record high levels of potency. The impact is more drug use. Legal drugs create addicts, which eventually hurts the legal marketers to satisfy their unfulfilled needs. This is precisely what happened with opioids, as Phillips 17 quantifies that 80% of black market heroin used to begin with prescription opioids. For these reasons, Lopez 17 writes that legalizing drugs would increase use by 200%. Empirically, despite regulation, use has been deadly. The CDC found that excessive alcohol use in the U.S. killed 95,000 cigarettes, killed 408,000 Americans a year. But that thing concludes that legal drugs like alcohol and tobacco cause more deaths than all legal drugs combined. Even worse, Calkins Fortune concludes that legalization would triple hard rates of hard drug dependence and leave 4.5 million people addicted. Then 6 quantifies that drug users have 13 times higher mortality rates. Contention 3's mass exploitation. Legalizing drugs creates new American cartels. Marine 19 writes that the legal market suppresses the power of law enforcement, which expands opportunities for international smuggling operations. Moreover, these new cartels will be significantly more efficient, as Calkins explains that cultivators would no longer fear crop eradication. Production could expand and mechanize, while distributors will be able to ship drugs by means used to transport legal goods, reducing costs by 99%. Even if there are still restrictions, exporting would still exist in mass. Humphreys 11 finds that comparatively it would be a safer venue to operate empirically. After California's legalization of marijuana, Freeman 21 found the drugs are flowing from California into Mexico, creating the single largest cannabis market in the world. Luckily, this hasn't gone out of hand yet, as Harvard 19 writes that because marijuana is still illegal federally, marijuana growers are unable to ship large amounts of the products to other countries. The impact is devastating. Exporting drugs would create instability in receiving nations. Apollo 12 writes that drug trafficking is a threat to state institutions, creating civil unrest and state collapse. Indeed, the drug trade creates systemic underdevelopment, trapping millions in poverty. Strager 13 writes that drug violence costs on average 30 years of GDP growth per nation. Worst of all, it replicates the harms of the US drug epidemic on a global scale. As empirics shows the DWS and synthetic drugs produced in the Netherlands are exported to the United States, killing hundreds of thousands annually. Thus, we negate.
Also, I forgot to call for evidence, but can I see the evidence on y'all's second link on incarceration about the expungement of records?
Yeah.
Rohan, can you do that? And real quick question, could I get a like a case text copy that's not card format?
Like, yeah, sure, I guess. I'll just send it to you. Here, can you put your email in the chat and I'll send it?
Or you could drop it in our doc. That also works too.
Oh, shoot, yeah, I just realized. I'll put in the doc. Let me just put it at the bottom. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. We're gonna run some prep. Let me call Rohan real quick. 1 second. You there?
Yeah.
All right. We'll start prep right now. All right, that was 25.
Oh, ready for cross?
Yep.
Okay, you want the first question?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So on your first contention about staying blue, do you have any link evidence that says that the way Americans would react to legalizing drugs is voting Trump instead of Biden?
Yeah, so there's a few pieces of evidence we read in case and a few pieces of evidence that will come in rebuttal. The first piece of evidence in case is the Ezra evidence that talks about how the Democrats are on the precipice of an era without a majority, specifically talking about how swing voters do not like woke policies. Specifically, the Lopez evidence talks about how legalization is politically unpopular, and it's the type of woke policy that will lead to this. The midterms argument, there's the evidence about historically every time they're soft on crime, they always lose elections, and there'll be evidence rebuttal that comes that says that this will make them vote against party lines, even if they're already leaning Democrat.
But the issue with your link evidence is that none of it is specific to legalizing drugs. It just says like some type of like policy that
no, the Lopez evidence is, and also the midterm election evidence is really specific to drugs. It literally says like legalizing drugs is like overwhelmingly unpopular and would contribute.
Yeah, it just says it's unpopular, but it doesn't mean that people. It doesn't.
I mean, we
say
read the
that
empirics of when this happened in the past. It's always led to.
We never legalized drugs in the past.
I mean, sorry, not like legalizing drugs, but similar policies of like being less harsh on crime, or for example, these woke policies with the Ezra evidence talks about, which empirically have led to downfalls in Democratic candidates.
Okay, you can have a question.
You read some evidence at the bottom of your case saying there's 2 billion cases and 8 million annual preventable deaths. Is this evidence about the United States?
I think it's
It's a global study.
yeah, it's a global study, but there's still like millions
Yeah.
at the very least hundreds of thousands of people affecting the United States. So I think we still have like a scope into a big impact.
Yeah, there's a lot of nations, but so like, do you have any card contextualizing how much people will save in the United States? Because like healthcare systems is way different than a lot
We
of
tell
other
you
nations.
that 93,000 Americans died of overdoses.
Oh,
Uh,
I mean for the second impact though.
So
of
for
mental
for the
illness.
second impact, we talk about I mean, not really, but like it can be like hundreds of thousands. Like
Okay. You can have a
it's
question.
definitely not like one person. Like
Yeah,
it's
I know
not
it's
a-
not one person. I just like think that like this evidence is probably in the context of like some nations who don't have the best healthcare
We'll
systems.
come up
whereas
with
the United
something.
States with a lot of investments into like mental health, for example.
We'll definitely come up with something. I'll take I'll take a question.
Yeah.
So on your second contention about drug use,
Yeah.
wait, can you elaborate on your third link?
The third link is, sorry, I don't have everything floated. My bad. The third link is perception. Basically,
yeah,
we
never
say
mind.
that
I misheard it. Okay.
we have a fourth link. The fourth link is a little bit more unique. Maybe you're asking.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the competition link. It's cross anyways.
Okay, yeah.
All right, we're gonna run some more prep. Let me call Rohan again. You there?
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're at 25. We'll continue that. Sorry, one second. We'll continue that right now. All right, that's 45 seconds. Just down their case. Is anybody not ready? Oh, wait, I'm sorry, one second. All right. Let's start. Now, on their first link, let's get to the idea that Trump's elected. They say he's going to go to proliferation. This is empirically disproven. Trump was in office for 4 years. We did not see him push or any other country start developing nuclear weapons in the first place. I'd argue that this is because Trump is somebody that other countries are kind of afraid of because he acts so erratically, and that they know that if they were to proliferate, they would bad things would happen. In the end, it's kind of stupid to assume he's going to do so. The only warrant is that he now no longer cares about revenge. We have to think about two things that Trump cares about the most. That is, one is personal image, and he knows that if he were to get the United States into a nuclear war, that would probably make him look like a pretty bad guy and go down in history as the worst president America ever had. But secondly, about his own life, understanding a nuclear war likely lead A, to his assassination, or B, to the fact that he gets nuked and they die. On midterms, Politico 21 indicates that because low approval ratings, gerrymandering, and other facets, they're actually, Democrats are the most pessimistic about the midterms, and they've almost already idealized that they're going to lose. Finally, Bloomberg 18 indicates that global warming is ultimately not in the long term because we've already passed the threshold. There's no incremental offense of increasing the accelerating global warming. C2. First, on uniqueness, it's about teens. I'd argue teens is an important. We're talking about overdoses. Most overdoses happen among adults. But on marketing, two issues. First, Junk 18 indicates that in the past, they've been able to regulate marketing. They indicate be really difficult. Right now, states like California are passing laws on where billboards and things can exist to prevent them from doing so. I'd say the government has they use the opioid epidemic as empirics. I'd say the government is going to use the opioid epidemic as an understanding how they need to fix it in the future. But secondly, if it's passing bipartisan, conservatives who might not want legalization are going to make sure that the most people use the least amount of drugs. So they're definitely going to prevent marketing on a large scale. On lowering costs, we concede that costs go down. That's great. Let's go to perception. They say that more kids are going to use drugs. Two issues. First, Pew 18 indicates that states with like high incarceration rates actually have no effect on whether or not people use a lot of drugs in those areas, which means that clearly the law is not an effective deterrent because kids like in legalized states understand that there's like if kids in legalized state are using the same as kids in like non-legalized states, then the law being true is not an effective deterrent. They can still be educated and understand that these drugs are dangerous by their parents. Like the check back mechanisms exist for children. Finally, on competition, this is the important part. They say that potency is going to increase. However, this doesn't interact with the idea of what makes drugs most deadly in the first place. According to our evidence, that is whether or not it's laced or spiked with things that the user does not know about. It doesn't matter which is potent. The reason the majority of overdoses occur is because people ask for a certain amount of drugs. They think that is a certain potency, but when they do it, it's actually a different potency. It's not the potency that matters. It's misconceptions and knowledge about what the potency is. That only solves as you affirm by getting rid of black markets. Because remember our quality control argument that, and from their second link, if you were to lower costs and allow actual companies to licensely distribute drugs to the population, Smith 18 indicates that people are always going to choose legal licensed sellers over sellers such as cartels or black markets because they know that the amount of potency in their drug as well as the drug that was produced safely. This is why our evidence about 90% of like overdose deaths having like other things in it is extremely important because we saw back from the majority of that by allowing safe access to drugs and like drug use. They say like mortality increased by 13%, but I agree the main reason for that is because people go to the illicit market, which is empirically been the only place people can access drugs. When you completely revamp the system, this evidence no longer actually applies to the status quo. Therefore, on the impact, I'd say prefer the Portugal example of a state that actually made drugs illegal and you saw an 80% decrease in overdose deaths. Let's go to mass exportations. A couple issues here. First, this assumes that cartels are going to like be able, like are going to have higher profit margins, but this doesn't make a whole lot of sense because if prices decrease, that means like their profits are also decreasing. Then they say they're going to like export in mass, but B, there's already regulations on who can grow. Like they say that like it'd be difficult to restrict that it's just going to happen in mass. The reason that there's so much it's very difficult to actually handle the unlegal efforts right now is actually because of federal prohibition in states like being able to understand like where they stand on this issue. Moreover, go to their impact. The idea of receiving drugs, causing poverty is just unwarranted. Read the case. There's zero warrant for why drugs do it. Without a warrant, the evidence isn't any good. There's no reason to believe it. I'd say that drugs can actually exporting high quality drugs from the United States would actually increase do these exact thing that is doing in America now, which is preventing overdose deaths from other things. But secondly, it can also develop the economy for all we know if people are able to enter jobs in the drug trade. Moreover, finally though, they say trafficking will increase, but I'd say the trafficking decreases because the state actually has the capacity to focus on more, which is on Portugal arrests went up by 500%. So in the end, you can also like decrease it to some part.
I need to see a few pieces of evidence.
Yeah.
So the thing I can see, like the evidence in politics, just what you read there. And then can I see like that people would rather choose legal licensed sellers over illegal sellers?
Yeah. Which was the first politic evidence? Sorry.
You were like Trump was in office for 4 years. He didn't cause any pro-lift. Trump, just like all the evidence on politics.
I mean,
I don't know which
the actual piece of evidence I read was the Democratic midterms. The whole like other states not proliferating was my own analysis.
All right, can you also set the climate change non-unique evidence then? And
Yeah.
Democrats are super pessimistic. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, Rohan, can you get climate change non-unique?
Yeah.
I'll get the other one. All right. NPR's in. We're describing the climate change.
Oh, yes, there's no one, there's both. And then in the meantime, can I take flex prep to ask a quick question?
Yeah, for sure.
I'll start prep after I've asked it, like once you start talking. What
Yeah.
was your second response on exports? First.
Wait, you don't have to start prep. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Second
Under
response. Rohan, do you know what my second response on export was?
I
It's
got
something-
it. Just confirm if I'm right. I just got the regulations on like who can like farm like the
Yeah,
drugs.
that sounds right.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Pause 5 seconds. Is the other piece of evidence in yet?
Yes.
I'm cutting. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
Oh, I put the climate change evidence.
Oh, you did? Awesome.
Oh, okay, cool.
Found in 21.
We will start prep then, when I hold up my timer. All right, that was 41 seconds. So we're at 55. The order will be neg case, just frontlining, and then my points arguments. Is anyone not ready? Awesome. First on staying blues, they say that other countries had not proliferated in the past, but insofar as Biden was elected, that stopped them from proliferating. Insofar as Trump being reelected shows them that there's another 4 years of irrationality, which caused them to proliferate. Second of all, they say that Trump scares other countries. Yeah, so other countries can't count on Trump as an ally. They're tired of his irrationality. That's why they proliferate. Then they say that Trump wouldn't want to be the president that took the U.S. to the nuclear war. No, he would want to be the president that shows that the U.S. has the most strength. And the way he does increase his hegemony is by making other people scared of him. The only way to do that is by showing strength, by having a nuclear war. Next, they say that he would die insofar as he would believe it's a smaller nuclear war that could escalate to a big nuclear war. He still has incentives to start a nuclear war in the first place. Then they say that climate change is non-unique in the long term, but NASA finds that one, climate change isn't non-unique yet, and second of all, there's no contextualization as to how long it takes for climate change to happen. Go on to drug use. First on marketing, they say that the government uses the opioid epidemic to fix this, but insofar as one is a different crisis, opioid epidemic was marketing to doctors, not marketing to actual people. But second of all, there's no policies or legislation change to decrease marketing. On lowering costs, they say that they at least solve for the black market because people go to the black market and people stop going to the black market. But insofar as the black market just lowers prices too, it's a lot easier because for them to get drugs because the market is legal, so there's just more drugs in general, which means that people still go to the black market. It's just overall cheaper, so everyone has more access. On perception, they see that their parents still teaching their kids. Our argument is about the government making the overall signal to kids that it's okay to take drugs, like independent of parents, which is why in the past we've seen teen use increase by 25%. On competition, they just say that people are spiked with bad drugs. That's the problem. No, the problem is the gateway drugs. That people end up starting with lower drugs that end up leading to more potent drugs, like on purpose. And also their regulations are ineffective about spiking drugs. More on that on their case. On their Portugal empiric, insofar as in Portugal, legalization was coupled with a UBI, all of their empirics about treatment increasing because people had more money, but in the United States, they wouldn't have any more money. On exports, finally, they say one cartels lose money, but we're talking about new American cartels being created. Second of all, they talk about regulations, but insofar as it's significantly easier to have more drugs and to have the cover of them being legal drugs, the regulations don't solve. That's why when they say that the U.S. can focus more on these like trafficking, they put less money towards the criminalization of drugs because now they're legal, which is why it's a lot easier to export drugs to other countries. That's why also when they say that they export high quality drugs, all these drugs are illegal, so there's no regulations. Go into their case. First on mass incarceration. One, Man 21 explains in many parts of the US, the most severe policies implemented during the drug war being scaled back, including expunsion of criminal records, which their own evidence is happening now in their second link. The nation has seen federal inmate populations down by a quarter last year and increased funding for drug treatment. To preserve the success, voted for the neg. Second, turn Cohen 15 argues the two largest for-profit prison companies in the United States have spent nearly $25 million on lobbying efforts, and Recovery Research Institute finds that restrictions could be placed limiting the number of sales and prohibiting use under certain conditions, maintaining a path of incarceration through heavily regulated drugs, which shown with marijuana, as a Toronto 21 finds that following the drugs legalization, arrests have risen as much as 166%. Next on public health, first group quality control and psychedelics turn co-option. Copeland 13 finds that drugs like marijuana are being legalized at a sustainable pace. RP 21 quantifies funding to psychedelic medicine is surpassing 700 million. Rapid legalization allows lobbyists to co-opt the project by persuading unprepared policymakers into passing botched policies empirically proven by tobacco. Proctor 13 gives 3 implications. A, big pharma adds potent substances and engineers the products to be harmful, which increases addictiveness to keep their products high, and which turns the impact. Empirically, opioids and tobacco killed hundreds of thousands. Second, big pharma allows distraction research and buys out companies to destroy their progress as they need addiction to keep their profits alive. C, big pharma funds huge lobbying campaigns to convince doctors, newspapers, and magazines that the drug is not harmful, or that the drug is harmful, pre-reckoning its use. Finally, on treatment, first, turn the internal link is FP20 writes that providing medically supervised injection room is an open invitation for addicts to take risks, knowing that they'll be helped. Not surprising, there were 100 times more overdoses. Moreover, injectors are still sharing needles with fellow addicts, but also insofar as D-Link in turn, international wreckage. DeCosta 19 explains there's a lack of those who can identify and address issues with addiction in doctors, but to get more doctors to NECO 21 writes there's nowhere for health professionals to come from, but overseas to the domestic education system simply won't produce enough. As Mecca 21 confirms that when doctors migrate, the loss of intellectual capital can bring the entire health system to a collapse. By Oppenheim 21 writes that the first line of defense against pandemics is surveillance, but without the surveillance, pandemics could kill tens of millions, which are inevitable due to increased globalization. Thank you.
Just the turn on, or the card for the turn on our first contention, and then I think it's like 3 pieces of evidence in our second contention, whichever one had the 3 implications, whichever one said that overdoses increased as a result of like open like treatment sites, and then the last one about doctors migrating.
Okay. I'll send the prison one. Daniel, can you send co-option and doctors?
Wait, can you get doctors? I don't have the block doc open. I'll get co-option though.
Yeah, it's just the turn on C1 and then all the cards against C2.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna I'll label it.
Sarah, can you drop the rhetoric for the Copeland turns, or the Copeland turns out of it? Then I'll put the cards.
Yeah.
I'll put the Copeland stuff like right above the case. I need the bubble. So can you put the other Copeland evidence inside?
There's better.
Oh yeah, that would good.
Not good. I just need to find the last few cards on doctors. One second. Okay, all of it's in there. Are you ready for cross, or are y'all gonna take prep first?
Just want to make sure I see everything first. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I see mass and cars. Yeah, it looks good. We're actually gonna run some prep time before cross.
Okay.
I'm gonna call Rohan real quick. I'm sorry. I know that I used like a good portion of time. I forgot the precise amount of time I used before this point. Do you know how much it was?
Did you hear that? I said 110.
110. All right. I'm calling Rohan now. You there? Yeah. All right. Then let me open my timer. We'll start. All right, give me 1 second. There's a fire truck driving by. It's just a little bit obnoxious. Actually, that's probably bad phrasing. It's a little bit distracting. All right, we'll start prep now. All right, I had to stop at 55 there. So 205, I believe.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask the first question in Crossfire?
Yeah, go for it.
So I guess Trump had 4 years in office, right? Where he was being a goon, right? Why did no state proliferate, like let's say year 3, year 4, when it was still questionable and what while he was there and still, doing his thing?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. So first, I think it took about, maybe 2 or 3 years for allies to be like, oh, this is like a really big issue. And then COVID came around. So there were a lot of economic issues insofar as allies couldn't really proliferate because of all of those like distractions. But then we did see a few countries start to proliferate. For example, Saudi Arabia got uranium. Look at Turkey. Trump told Germany like that he wants them to proliferate. All of those things happened. And then Biden got elected. So they were like, okay, saving grace, boom, saved by the Biden. Then
So then
Trump gets elected.
Mhm.
Then everything just continues.
So is the nuclear war scenario, like is this nuclear, what okay, if I can ask, what precisely is the nuclear war scenario?
Our scenario is that all of our allies acquire nuclear weapons, which leads to heightened miscalc.
So who's the war between?
The wars between, we don't give specifics. I mean, we could, like any of our allies, like
I guess what's the offense? People die. Wait, the world goes extinct in a war between X and Y, right? Who's X and Y?
Yeah, I mean, I can. Do you want me to give you some people?
I mean, I mean, it's just like extinction is pretty huge. I think we should know who's gonna cause it.
Yeah. We can say like Saudi Arabia, Germany, Japan. The
Saudi
conflicts.
Arabia and Germany are gonna go at it.
No. Them
Germany doesn't have nukes, right? I mean.
Okay. Our argument is that they proliferate. When they proliferate, then the chance of miscalculation happening with any of our allies, because all of our allies proliferate, leads to conflicts happening with every single enemy and ally. It's just a matter of which one happens first, which I can't give you the specifics on because I don't know yet. Not Germany and Saudi Arabia, it would be like Russia and Germany.
You can have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay. On your argument on black market.
Yeah.
So we both agree that prices of legal drugs are decreasing.
Yeah. And that's why legal distributors become competitive with the black market.
Okay. So when that happens, do you agree that overall use increases from decreased costs?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we say legal drug use increases when you affirm.
That's cool.
Do you mind if I ask one more question before time runs out?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I just want to understand the responses to this idea that, so why do the pharmaceutical companies make the drugs more harmful for the users?
Because if they're more addictive, then they can get more people coming back for more.
So by harmful, we mean like addictive in nature?
Yes.
Okay. We have 55 seconds left. I'm going to call Rohan one last time. You there, buddy? Yeah. All right, cool. Let me grab my timer. We're going to start our last 55 right now. I'm sorry, that was 25 seconds. We have 30 left. I just want to make sure, which card is it on the doc that was about overdoses increasing? The first response to treatment.
Oh, 102 times. I can send that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you can do that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So 102. Oh, yeah, found it. Okay. It's right like above the case doc again. Actually, oh, this is the wrong doc. Wait, it is. Wait, oh, never mind. It's the right doc. I pasted it. If you want to control it, is FV20.
Sorry, what was that? Control what? Control F what?
Control of FV.
FV?
Yeah, V.
Oh, I got you. FV20.
Mhm.
Perfect. All right, we're gonna run our last 30. 1 second. I have to lock my phone. All right, continue. All right, we're out of prep. And Rohan, just have the top of the pro doc open.
Okay. It's going to be starting on our case, then going on to Wang, and then their case. Is anyone not ready? Time can begin now. They put a turn on our first contention about how you actually saw an increase in arrests. However, that was with like legalization with one drug and decriminalization. However, there's no way to do this. If there's absolute legalization, there's obviously no loopholes you can exploit. If every single drug is not decriminalized, but rather legalized, there's no way you can exploit this. There's no way you'll see an increase in arrest for drug possession if it's already like fully legal. But on our second, we're going for our second contention. They try to tell you that like upon marijuana legalized actually saw an increase in overdoses. However, first they don't give you like an actual quantification, except so there you don't know how much like it actually increases. But secondly, the only quantification they really give is that you see 100% more overdose, but they only talk about we've never read anything in our psychedelics contingent about injection. We talk about access to medicine, so therefore they read a turn on a link that doesn't really even exist. But I'd argue like psychedelics will be able to solve for this. We never saw an legalization of psychedelics in the full legalization of psychedelics in the past. Then they try to turn it by saying like there's more doctors. We never like talk about doctors are reading turns on a link that doesn't even exist. They don't even quantify like what these doctors like actually do and why they're important. Thus, we're going for our third contention about psychedelics. Man tells you that there's high overdose right now. However, Barker tells you that because psychedelics are able to our psychedelics are safe, they alter the mood, and there's no risk of dependency that actually is able to solve for opioid use. Jaeger tells you that if we were to legalize, it'd be better reforms for psychedelics, which is really critical because these reduce opioid use by 55%. That's really critical because you see a decrease in mortality by 80% in overdoses after decriminalization. That's really important because 93,000 Americans die every year or died last year. Let's do some weighing first. Some probability weighing. Obviously, you're more likely to see a decrease in overdose deaths if you increase access to treatment than see a full-out blown nuclear war happen if Trump were to become president. That's because Trump has been president in the past. There's been no nuclear war. That probability weighing is clean. But I'd argue we outweigh on clarity of impact. Their impact is only talking about how an increase in you see an increase in like use in drugs and an increase in potency, but that does not equate to an increase in overdose deaths. Our impact is specific to overdose deaths. We went on that. Let's go on to their case. On C1, they say fear causes states to proliferate, but they don't reconcile with Ryan's argument that fear prevents proliferation so far, that there was no nuclear war in 4 years. There's no good link. But second, Miscock has no impaired precedent. Humans always avoid nuclear war. Third, we outweigh on probability. On their second contention. They frontline a lot of stuff, but they ultimately concede. The potency analysis, Ryan says high potency doesn't kill, but a lack of understanding about potency. This is solved when you affirm through safe dealers, so overdose to go away. They say black market lowers prices. They concede. Smith people prefer legal markets. Moreover, they say Portugal is not applicable because UBI. They give no warrant. UBI would give more money from drugs, but there was still a decrease in Portugal. And then finally on C3, they concede that the impact has no warrant. You can vote for ARGs with no warrant. Drug trade would could help economies. For those reasons, we affirm.
Okay. So now we'll take some prep.
That was 118.
Okay. The order is gonna be sorry, the order is gonna be our contention 3 on exports. It's gonna be some weighing afterwards. You can flip next to it. Their case, and then I'll go back to our case. I'll signpost everything there. Okay, so everyone good? They say there's no warrants for our first impact on our contention 3. There is a warrant if there's more drug trade in this nation, there's more instability because you have to send those drugs to those nations, and that smuggling causes a lot of violence. But independently, the second impact conceded that you replicate the harms of the US drug trade in every single other nation, which means that we linked in the case on a global scale, fully conceded. That point extend the argument. Legalizing drug trade is new American cartels, as Calkins 11 explains that legal cover would allow traffickers to mechanize production and transport drugs in mass with 99% reduction in cost. This is proven by the exportation of marijuana. This linked to a case on a global scale because exports create new drug markets all over the world, and now these countries have legalized empirically W rights. The Netherlands drug legalization killed the opioid epidemic, and the US killing nearly 1 million, which means that we linked to the case on a global scale. Even if they say that psychedelics are, for example, legal in the United States, they're not legal in other nations. All these drugs will be really, really harmful. That's the analysis that Sienna can see. They'll still be laced because they're still exporting illegal drugs. These are still like illegal markets that are being produced, which means that overall we link it to their magnitude weighing. But we also say we're more probable because they have conceded empirically when you legalize in California led to all these impacts of the biggest drug market in the world, killing more people than everybody in the United States because it's on a global and international level. Also, you have a very specific impact. I extend like a really specific number, and also we link to every other nation, which means that we are definitely a bigger impact than theirs, even if our impact isn't as clear. Their case. On their case, first on the impact level, they're definitely not winning 8 million. The analysis that they're evidence on a global scale. But then independently, let's go to the link level. They have fully conceded the on the top that tells you there's going to be a co-option of psychedelics. This means that there's round over. We tell you specifically that basically these big lobbying companies will lobby the government into allowing them to lobby the government allows them to pass really bad policies on these psychedelics. They'll do a few things. The first is that they'll do they'll buy distraction research and buy a lot of these companies to make sure they go collapse and make it so they cannot production. But Dave can see this is often because the status quo, there's sustainable research development because it's happening slowly, and these companies are able to get lobbied because of the fact that they're slowly developing. There's no federal legalization, which means that it's over time able to build up into a bigger industry before it gets lobbied. The second application, which is also confused, that they fund a lot of these magazines and these newspaper channels, which basically say that psychedelics are really harmful, don't allow people to get treatment. There's a stigma against this treatment. But third and most importantly, they have conceded that they add dangerous substances to these treatments, which makes the treatments much more dangerous. But they've seen empirically in tobacco killed millions of people, which always their internal link on like scope because they only link to 100,000. At that point, then on the treatment thing, impact on the treatment thing is probably a really bad thing. The reason why is because increase in overdoses, it creates a moral hazard where people think they can just get treatment, but the thing is the treatment isn't 100% effective, which is why they go to get more overdoses, 102 times increased overdoses. The impact isn't about injection sites, but legalization comes with injection sites as part of the dissent. But even more importantly, it doesn't matter because the warranty is about moral hazard, which is the conceded one they don't give. Also, we have empirics. This is more problem than their case. Our case. Go to the contention 2. On the contention too, we're going for the market link extended that when you legalize drugs, you'll have First Amendment rights for people to do things like marketing. This is really, really bad because of the fact that people can start seeing ads and comes much more destigmatize people use a drug much more, so hundreds of thousands of people using drugs. They have to see the weighing from cases says that more drug use is worse than overdoses and more lethal drug use. The reason why is because people can die from overdoses, for example. Yeah, we agree, but what people die more from is people doing things like drunk driving accidents and going through things like crime because of drug use, which is why they can see that even though alcohol and tobacco are highly regulated, they kill more people than all legal drugs combined, which means that clearly even there's less overdoses, there's still more deaths from other causes of drugs, which is fully conceded kills millions of lives. The weighing was also like inconstructive, so by that.
All right.
Can everybody drop their name in the chat who spoke first?
Yeah, sure. Oh shoot. Do you want my school too, or?
Yeah, because we don't have ballots. We just have to like email it to Jeff. So.
Are y'all ready for Grand?
Yeah.
Before we start the first question.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so do you want the first question?
Oh, I think Santa offered it to you.
Oh, I misheard then. Yeah, sure. Okay, so this weighing, right? I didn't hear. I'll be honest. I didn't. When was this weighing read in this round?
It wasn't. I mean, which piece of weighing? The weighing in
the weighing that drug use is worse than overdose.
Yeah, it's word for word in the case doc I sent. It was inconstructive. You read a piece of weighing in case that specifically says that even this regulation, drug use is more lethal because there's other causes of drug deaths besides for overdoses. That's why legal drugs like alcohol and tobacco kill more people than all legal drugs combined. It's in case if judges doesn't want to call for it.
All right, cool. You can have a question.
Okay. Let's talk about psychedelics. So currently, are psychedelics getting like legalized?
No.
Like I mean, like maybe like not every single psychedelic, but like there are psychedelic drugs getting legalized, right? Like for example, LSD is like getting a lot of research on it. Shrooms are getting legalized on the federal level.
Psilocybin. I mean, mushrooms have only been decriminalized in one
but
state.
Like research wise, like for example, for medical.
Oh yeah, argument. That's not our argument.
I know, but there's like a path to legalization, somewhat of a path, right?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, there's a path to like studying the drugs.
But there's like, okay, the point I'm trying to get at is like there's some form of gradual legalization, right? They're like legalizing parts of it. They're doing more research. They're understanding more, and then when they understand more, they legalize more part of it. It's like it's a gradual form of legalization.
I don't think so. I mean, insofar as only one state so far has even decriminalized the possession, it's still
but on the federal level though, right? Like let's talk about the federal level. Like
what is the federal government has had not even a bill proposed.
No, with the federal, like we read evidence saying they spent $700 million investing into like literally
there's a difference between there's a I mean like
they're allowing legal research.
Wait. Opioids were invested in for medicine, but they weren't legalized for the entire population.
Yeah, but wait. I'm pretty sure the topic just says legalization, not legalization.
I know, but I'm saying federal investment into a drug does not mean the drug is legalized.
It signals the drug is becoming more and more accepted.
Then why weren't opioids legalized in 1980?
I'm not sure, but opioids are legal right now. Like
wait, opioids? I know, but opioids are not legal for sale or distribution outside of medical use.
Wait, okay, so like that's like totally fine, but I feel like that's probably a new line of argumentation because I would assume the majority of drugs probably wouldn't be legal for more than medicinal use, right? Because it's like
yeah, but that's restricted.
Like cocaine for kids. Like for example, there's a lot of restrictions.
I know, but wait, when we legalize, we're not legalization means that possession, whether or not you have a prescription, is legal.
Wait. So Okay, well, let's just not get into topicality debate. I'm too tired for that. Let's
I,
move
I,
on
agree.
to
I think that's cross.
okay, yeah.
All right. It's gonna be their C3, their C2, back over to my C2. Is anybody not ready? Cool. Let's start. No, they go for their C3 and they go for their C3 in final focus, but in second rebuttal, they conceded that there's no warrant to the impact. Then they give you a warrant then they give you a warrant in the second summary. That's not a valid place to vote. That's not very in the spirit of debate. Conceded the analysis that you have to like develop a warrant to actually win an argument. They didn't do that other than rereading it in the second summary. Go to C2, a couple issues. First, they concede the response in the second contention that said that since price is lower, you ultimately eliminate the illicit market, which means that all drugs are then sold through regulated means. This goes hand in hand with the potency analysis, which said the majority of overdoses occur because of a lack of understanding about potency, not because of high potency, which means that if you solve people understanding potency, you ultimately solve the root cause of overdoses. On the impact level, they go for weighing in second summary that indicates that like more people die as a result. Their evidence doesn't say that. I'm looking at it right now. All it says is that like alcohol and tobacco cause more deaths than all legal drugs combined in like uses, but there's no indication that legalizing all drugs would like cause more deaths. That's not in the case, and they don't extend the warranting. Instead, prefer the weighing that 90% of people that have overdosed in Florida, for example, were because of a lack of understanding about what was in their drug, and then we saw the root cause for the opioid crisis. On our case, they give three responses to the legalization pace and say that we can see them. No, Rohan handled it very well when he indicates that our argument isn't about treatment, it's about increasing general access. That's why the Magento evidence indicates that affirming the resolution will increase legal access for psychedelics to all people in the population, which goes in hand in hand with the Argento 21 evidence, which indicates that this reduces the likelihood of overdosing on opioids by 55%, which is why we see our impact materialize of 80% decrease in opioid deaths. That last part is unresponded to because we frontline the whole response about UBI. So you know that when you affirm the resolution, you see an 80% decrease in opioid deaths. But then on treatment, they extended the turn, I believe, that said that like overdoses increased because you have treatment. Rohan said that they don't have the link for that because we didn't read the link for that. But moreover, those overdoses were only the impact of people having access to illicit drugs. But since it's ultimately conceded that the illicit market goes away, you solve for the root cause of overdoses. Their argument about like extraneous causes is unwarranted, not unconstructive, not well warranted in final focus. Prefer ours on probability.
Okay.
I have 47 seconds of prep left. All right. The order will be our C3, their case, our case, weighing along the way. Yeah. Is anyone not ready? All right. Sorry. I'm sorry, my dock is working. Okay. First on cartels, let's extend the argument. Legalizing drugs creates new American cartels, as Calkins 11 explains. Legal cover would allow traffickers to mechanize production and transport drugs in mass with 99% reduction in cost, which is proven by the exportation of marijuana in California. This links turns our case on a global scale because exports create new drug markets all over the world, and none of these countries have legalized. Empirically, TW writes the Netherlands drug legalization fueled the opioid epidemic in the U.S., killing nearly 1 million. They say that we give no warrant, but that's only for our first impact. But state collapse. Insofar as we've given a warrant for the deaths impact in every every single speech, and they've never requested like a further warrant on that. We still have full access to that impact, and that's the only response on it. There's two places we outweigh. First, on probability, insofar as we've already seen this exact scenario happen with marijuana in California, but it was a smaller scope. If it was to happen with all legalization in the entire country, that's when we would see a larger impact. But second of all, we got way on scope because we lead to these drug crises happening in every single country that the U.S. starts exporting drugs to, which leads to all of the drug crises happening in the U.S. on a global scale in every individual place. The reason that psychedelics never prereqs this addiction is because insofar as all of these countries do not have access to psychedelics because psychedelics are not legal in their country, then there's increased crime in all those countries with no solvency for addiction. At that point, you already signed your ballot, but let's go on to their case anyways. On psychedelics, extend the co-option term. We argue that insofar as lobbyists would pass bad policies surrounding psychedelics that would include distraction research for psychedelics once you legalize drugs, that stops any psychedelics from having any real actual change and actual research and funding going into them to create a good medical drug. Insofar as that's true, it means it's terminal defense, but also Daniel tells you that we're legalizing the status quo, which is a really good argument because insofar as there's already a path to legalization, it means that if you vote neg, you will already see psychedelics be legalized without the distraction research. But finally, on our case on marketing, one, there's no impact extended on the amount of people that would be solved by overdose. But second of all, we say another big cause of deaths from drugs is the fact that people end up getting high and then driving and things like that, which probably kill more people. But even then, it's a wash because you consider exports first. Yeah.
Good round, y'all. Thank you so much for judging.
Got it.
Okay.
Real quick, just to make sure, Fairmont was at first, Flintridge was next second.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.
Have a good night.